Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. Goodsell, not Jones. This one is not really going to be about Mormon brainwashing per se. It's not going to have the title brainwashing in it. And so it may not get the number of views that brainwashing tends to draw in, but going slow on a family home evening night, which was changed, Mormons. Nelson changed family home evening to Sundays. And there's no more Monday family home evenings. You guys need to get out of the habit. Follow the living prophet. Shame on you. And so, this is Hedge laws. As family home evening has become a Hedge law in the Mormon Church. Hedge laws come from the Pharisees of the Bible. Bum, 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 bum. And if you've ever read your Bible, there's this character named Jesus who's constantly getting attacked by the Pharisees for violating the hedge laws the Pharisees created. And so this Jesus character is a rebel, an activist, a liberal Democrat. If you've never seen the GOP Jesus, Google or do your YouTube search GOP Jesus. It is hilarious. Yeah, Jesus gets accused of being a drunk, satanically possessed, a slut whore, a filthy, disgusting, poor person, all those types of things. All because of his rebellion of hedge laws. He purposely violated hedge laws because there was such great need for giving aid to the populace. And so let's clarify what a hedge law is, and to do that we must first establish what a law is. The law in religion for the Jews are the 10 Commandments, plus almost 600 more on top of it. I believe there's 613, or is it 603 total laws. And then there's one question that they have for Elijah whenever he comes during Passover that they have planned to ask him in regards to how many cups of wine are they supposed to set out at the table. But those are the laws. For the United States, we have a constitution. And people get confused thinking that the Constitution is the organization of the government. No, that's the medium that the government says is to be utilized as an attempted experiment. Article 4 says a republican form of government, thus the reason for Articles 1, 2, and 3. And then Article 6 says it's supposed to be a constitutional republic, because it says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So then what is the law in the Constitution? Well, in Article 6, it says laws made in pursuance thereof. What were the laws made in pursuance thereof? Bill of Rights. You also read from the Declaration of Independence talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In Amendment number 4, they talk about the word for property. It's slipping my mind right now. It's an E word, I think. Effects. Effects are property. And so that includes your papers, your furnishings, and any other property you have. And so life, liberty, and property are the umbrella laws, the core laws of our Constitution, of the government we're supposed to have. Now, Republicans insist that you need a specific crime in order to take a person to court, especially when it's them. And so thus you have Trump and the GOP saying, hey, we don't see a specific law naming Trump and Ukraine in the act of committing treason against America, and therefore Trump committed no crime. That's how they think. That's how Republicans think. And it's not typically that extreme before Trump. Now that Trump's in, yes, it's that extreme. But that's how they think. And that's why when Republicans dominate legislatures, they tend to come up with tons and tons and tons of specific laws. They're not supposed to. You're supposed to be vague. You're supposed to be general. Life, liberty, property. That's it. That's all. You take somebody's life when it's not self-defense, you've committed a crime. It's that simple. It's not complicated. You don't have to be specifically named, and you don't have to specifically be on Fifth Avenue, and you don't specifically have to shoot the person to take away their life. Those are hedge laws, and Republicans are all about hedge laws. Laws that are designed to keep people from committing the violations of life, liberty, and property. Because if the more specific you can make it, the farther away people will be from violating the umbrella laws. And that's their logic, that's their thinking on that. And again, Jesus was not a follower of hedge laws, because the hedge laws created problems, like your ox getting stuck in the mire on the Sabbath. What do? I'm going to lose the farm if the ox dies. So, do you violate the hedge law, or do you rescue your oxen to save your family and save your farm? Those are the kinds of chaos that the Pharisees created. And you can see, yes, those are the kinds of chaos that Utah government causes here in Utah, as other people around the world mock and laugh at the Zion Curtain, for one example. And so yes, Mormons have hedge laws. The hedge laws, if you haven't figured out, are laws that protect people from the main laws. And so for Christianity, Christians, especially male Christians, love the epistles of Paul. Paul was a Pharisee. And so as a Christian, he carries over the baggage of his Pharisaical thinking into Christianity, and male Christian pastors and preachers and all sorts of stuff love his epistles over the Gospels even. There's a particular Christian channel where a guy focuses on the epistles of Paul. That's what his church is based on. And so if you're not familiar with the epistles of Paul, Paul had some classics such as the glory of a woman is her hair, and I agree with that one. Oh, long, lush, wavy. Oh, I like that one. But women must keep silent in church. Keep that woman silent. That's a classic. Eve was responsible for the fall, not Adam. Classic Paul. Paulinian doctrine. And a woman must submit to her husband. That's also another Pauline doctrine. And so, yes, you can understand why men, Christian men, who are preachers, pastors, and even followers love the epistles of Paul to suppress women. But yeah, those are all hedge laws, guys. Those are not the core laws. And what is the core law for Christianity? Give you one hint, it's one word. Just one. Love. When Jesus was talking with the lawyer, and Jesus asked him, what's the greatest law? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor. And so it's love, let it love. But which love? Is it eros? Adam and Eve, eros, or Philo? Oh, Philo, Philadelphia, which is incorrectly translated as brotherly love. Philo is brother, because it's the masculine singular, or plural. It's a little weird in Latin, but Greek even has some problems trying to figure out which one it is. But Philia, so Sophia, for example, wisdom. Anyway, and so in the Mormon Church, there are some hedge laws. They call them standards or values. And Mormons just love adding all sorts of hedge laws to make a list of do's and don'ts. And I'm sorry, Mormons, you know better. The selections from the Book of Moses, or Moses as we've abbreviated it, chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. Whose plan of happiness was it to have hedge laws, to take away agency? That's right, Lucifer. Lucifer, his plan of happiness was hedge laws, to make sure that every single mortal is exalted in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. So if you're an ugly, fat, bald, old man, you need to be forced to be married for all eternity to a woman, if not more than one woman, under Lucifer's plan of happiness. And so if women find such a man, and I'm sure that there's no such men like that on earth, because we're all perfect men, but if there were a case, women may not be attracted to such a man, and they would prefer another man who's well-defined, young, and virile, and strong, and intelligent, and blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, agency is gone. You don't get to choose your mate anymore. You now have to be paired up, because you can't be trusted to make the right choices. And so thus the Jews had the arranged marriage because of that. But for the church, they allow freedom to choose, as the number of singles in the Mormon church keeps skyrocketing year after year. But other things in regards to pornography, which I talked about in brainwashing, that and other hedge laws are used as idol worshippers, idols to be worshipped. And so the For Strength of the Youth pamphlet for all teenagers, and it's good for adults too. No, it's not. It's not good for the youth. Why don't you just try teaching the youth proper sex ed and cut all this nonsense out about keeping it a secret and teaching abstinence, obeying abstinence, commanding abstinence. Oh my God. But then it doesn't help when you have psychiatrists also supporting religion on that matter. The commandment, if you know the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery. And so what is adultery? Well, then you have to go to the Gospels, where you find out a woman was taken in adultery, brought before Jesus to be judged, so that they can have him murdered by the Romans. And so he says, woman, are there no accusers? Notice he's saying woman caught in adultery, woman this, woman that. If you lust after a woman, you've committed adultery in your heart. I've done this video under my hour-long pornography one. There's a difference between a woman and a virgin or a maiden. A virgin is one who has not had a child. Has nothing to do with whether she's done BJ, HJ, other things, solos, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're not talking about any of that. Paul does. Paul's great on the fornication stuff. But not in regards to the core law, which is that you don't want to be a woman who has children from multiple men. Who's taking care of you back then? You're all on your own. And so you have to be a prostitute then if nobody's taking care of you. Because women are not allowed to take care of themselves. And so you don't want to be guilty as a man to cause such a condition to a woman either. And thus it used to be in certain societies that adultery was a crime because of the sub-treatment of women in society. And so nowadays we have birth control. Yay! The pill that causes insanity. And condoms that leak. But IUDs, those seem to be the best. And I won't. Anyway. But when you have a society that clings to the past to justify suppression of the future people, the current people, you get into hedge laws. Other hedge laws for strength of the youth in regards to sexuality is dressing appropriately, modestly they call it. And they want women to be afraid. Sorry, I have to have the room temperature at a decent temperature, which requires having the windows open, and that causes the traffic to be louder. And of course you guys have always been hearing my air unit going off. And so yeah, there's a lot of victim blaming that goes on in the church. BYU has had numerous scandals as they've been forced to change their policy on the reporting of rape. Because they weren't doing it before, and they were punishing the woman who was victimized by rape. Well, hey, the hedge laws of BYU say that you're not supposed to have a man in your bedroom. And so, we're going to have to punish you, even though you've been raped and you're having a baby, which you can't get an abortion because that's a sin. Again, we need proper sex ed, because the number of babies both men and women slaughter in their lifetime would shock any good Christian. Horrify them. But that's the main thing, is that the church leaders control the populace of the Mormons with hedge laws, and it's idolatry. It strays from the core purpose of the initial laws of God, whoever you're claiming God is. And when you have God be a hedge law God, you're creating a different God. And for Mormons, you should know better, because Doctrine and Covenants, section 1, verse 16, says it right there. When you do your own will, you are saying that God approves of what you are doing. My truth is the new thing that they're saying now. And you are creating an idol that you yourself are calling God. And you are giving fear or reverence to it. When you give fear to an idol, that's a prohibition and something to fear. And that's a god of fear that you're creating. And oftentimes you accuse Lucifer of being that god. And, oh, that's demonic, that's evil, that's blah, blah, blah. Whereas, oh, I gotta have a picture of Jesus in my home, I've gotta have the cross for Christianity, but for Mormons it's the temple. You gotta have the temple up in your home, you gotta have Jesus, the Mormon Jesus, not the Christian Jesus, up on the walls of your home. And therefore it's a home where the Spirit dwells, because the Spirit doesn't dwell in unholy temples. Again, I did that video about the difference between the Holy Ghost and the Spirit. Spirit is everywhere. I breathe in the Spirit, and I kill and slaughter millions of it. And then I exhale the Spirit, the dead corpses. So that's the Mormon doctrine. Didn't you know that, Mormons? All spirit is matter. It's just fine and pure, which means it's the gas elements. And so, yes, every time we breathe in, we slaughter the Spirit, then we exhale the Spirit. Then you can say, well, no, the actual helium and hydrogen and oxygen, those don't actually die. Yeah, you're right, it's the bacteria stuff or whatever that we breathe in, but the organisms. But, oh well. So I hope you understand hedge laws now. When you get so caught up on hedge laws, you stray and you commit crimes, like the news report of the Mormon woman who was murdered by her husband. It's just sad. Or the big national news headline of the Mormon woman who had her husband murdered, as well as several other people murdered, and she now thinks that she's the goddess who's going to bring on the second coming of Jesus Christ, and she's going to kill anybody who gets in her way, as her kids are now missing. She's Arizona Mormon who married a nutcase from Rexburg, Idaho, and the two of them were last seen in Hawaii. Their children unknown. But apparently they found emails saying that she was going to flee the state with her kids, but they're still not arresting her yet. So that's disturbing that they're not arresting her. That was what was disturbing with Josh Powell. But in his case, there were some problems there. He was poorly treated by Mormons when he moved to Utah. And my light is dying. Give it a couple of minutes and it may come back. Yeah, with all the pressure, no body found of his wife. but yet everybody was accusing him of it as if he were guilty. And that kind of a pressure on a guy who is no longer with a wife, if he is innocent. If his wife left him for the guy she met at Walmart, as the one video camera seems to suggest, everybody thinks he's a murderer, and he's already been mistreated by Mormons in the first place, and then now she's gone, and he's left alone to take care of the kids, and everybody thinks he's a murderer and wants to take the kids away from him and wants to throw him in prison for the rest of his life without a body to show that he's guilty, and he has to get case worker visits for his children. Yeah, it's just a sad story all around, with the poor way in which the police handled it. West Valley City Police. Yeah, he was not too far away from here, actually. Then to go off to Oregon and feel like he had no other choice but to kill himself and take his boys with him by blowing up the house. Man, that was tough. But the one good thing that came out of it was that they exposed Daddy Powell for child porn. He was creating child porn, not just getting it from the internet, which I did that in my porn video too. Big distinction about that I explained there. He was taking pictures of kids in the bathroom as they were changing for the pool or whatever they were doing. And so he got locked up. And then, did he? No, I think he survived prison, but then killed himself afterward. I can't remember exactly what happened to his final days. But, that was the only good thing that came out of that, was finding out that he was also corrupt. But they investigated him only because they wanted to find dirt on Josh Powell. Do us a favor, though. Alright. We're done with Hedge laws. This is already going on to 30 minutes almost. So I want to get back to watching Blacklist. And maybe squeeze in another episode before I go to bed. The news is worthless now. They're all talking about the primaries.